Welcome to the Thought Brothers. I'm Gary Johnson, aka Mr. Producer. We got a jam-packed show for you, kicking it off with the analyst, the man with the plan, pointing his finger at us. I guess he got something to talk about with his finger out there. Go ahead, analyst. What you got?
Come on, people. Come on, people. Hey, look, there's a lot going on in the world today. So I just want to say hello and let's talk about something that we may not think about a lot. We celebrated Black History Month in February, but March is Women's History Month. So I just want to shine a spotlight on three ladies who have made a significant contribution to the world and how we view contribution of ladies. Okay. And I'm going to start with the athlete. I'm going to go to the journalist, and I'm going to end with the politician. And then I'm sure my brothers, Mr. Spivey and CJ, will pick it up from the political point of view. But any man who has, a daughter, any man who has a sister, and you can look at it from a different perspective, and we all have mothers. But I think it's really important that when you have a young lady in your household, or have had one, you want to make sure your perspective on the world changes a little bit, right? You expect boys to be great athletes or leaders, and you pat them on the head and say, "Get out there and just do your thing." But with your girls, you're a little bit more careful. You want to hold tight a little bit, make sure your girls are okay. But you also want to be able to show that your girls can do anything that boys can do. So my first tribute on Women's History Month is going to be to Danica Patrick, a female race car driver. Okay. And, this was really big with my daughter growing up, just pointing to her. I wasn't pointing at the GoDaddy.com commercials. No, let's keep it straight. Okay? I wasn't pointing at those. But from the athletic perspective of seeing a woman in a male-dominated sport, IndyCar racing, and then NASCAR, she held it down. It appears, and give you some quick stats on her, but her first race, Daytona, in 191 races over 7 years. Wow, her last race was 2018. Okay, but yeah, she drove Indy, she drove NASCAR, she drove Xfinity. Wow, I mean, it goes on and on. So to make a long story short, she is the most successful female race car driver in the history of the world. And just for example, and while she raced NASCAR, because again, keep this in perspective, she did Indy, NASCAR, and another series as well that I'm unfamiliar with. But while she was in NASCAR, she had 7 top 10 finishes. I think that's pretty significant when you have about, 32, 33 cars out there. She grabbed the pole. Okay, so when you're qualifying for the race, the fastest time gets the pole. She grabbed the pole in actually one of her races, which is very significant. I mean, some guys can race their whole career and never get pole position in a race. Okay, with the IndyCar series, let's see. Yeah, so this makes more sense. The IndyCar series, her first race was in 2005. Her last race was in 2018. She had a win in the IndyCar series. 2008 Indy Japan 300. Okay, so she had 1 win in IndyCar series. She had 3 poles. She took the pole position 3 times. Okay, and just to say that's a major accomplishment in a male-dominated sport is pretty significant. Okay, and what I want to do is, before I let you guys weigh in on these 3 ladies, I just want to make sure I go through it, and then I'm just going to open it up and let you guys roll with it. So, Danica Patrick, we take our hat off to you for being a significant contributor and showing the world and young ladies that they can do anything that the guys can do. So, fantastic job with that. I want to go from the athlete, okay, to the journalist, okay. If we're big on football here, we're big on all the sports, right? But we're big on football, and I think it's very significant when you think about journalism to think about, a show that's still on CBS today, the NFL Today. And in 1978, we had an African-American female in 1978. Get up there, Jane Kennedy. Come on, man. That is incredible. We talk about 1988, 98, 2008, 2018, 1978. They gave her the mic, put her on TV in a world that we're still complaining about today, and she was able to do it almost 50 years ago and get up there and be on the NFL today? Hold on, that ain't all Miss Jane Kennedy does. Look, Mr. Spivey and Gary know. CJ probably checking this out like, who checking this out, right? But
I have the original cover. I have the original mag.
Okay. Occupations: actress, model, sportscaster, television personality, producer, writer, philanthropist. Wow. Also Miss Ohio USA at one point. Wow. We're not going to talk about the marriage to Leon Isaac Kennedy, but we're going to talk about awards. NAACP Image Award, 1982, Outstanding Actress in a Motion Picture. I mean, this was a lady that was way ahead of the times as far as equal rights. I mean, just to be, again, on a male-dominated show. I mean, Phyllis George, I believe she was a former Miss America, but, her ethnicity was white. And they allowed her to be on there to try to, with the women's movement, to try to get some representation. But when Phyllis George stepped away to put an African-American woman in that position in the late 70s, man, that's saying something. So hats off to Jane Kennedy for all of her occupations. And with that being said, I'm going to transition to the politician. Gary and Mr. Spivey already know who it is. Y'all ain't got it. Come on, man. Y'all know about Shirley Chisholm. Come on, man. Shirley Chisholm. This is crazy. I'm analyzing. I'm doing research. This is crazy. She was an American politician who in 1968 became the first Black woman to be elected to the United States Congress. Miss Chisholm represented New York's 12th congressional district and for 7 terms from 1969 to 1983. And in 1972, check this out. She became the first, you hear this, the first Black candidate for a major party nomination for president of the United States and the first woman to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. All right, guys, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We got an athlete in Danica Patrick in a male-dominated field. We got a journalist, beauty queen, actress, whatever, everything with Miss Jane Kennedy in male-dominated industries. And we got Shirley Chisholm. We talking about, again, we ain't talking about 2022, 2012, or 20. We talking about 1972. She running for president of the United States, not only as a woman, but as an African-American woman. Come on, man. Somebody give me some feedback on these 3 phenomenal women as we celebrate Women's History Month. Somebody.
Here's a little fact. About 6 miles from where this studio is, there is a bench and a placard named after Shirley Chisholm right here in Palm Coast, Florida, where she lived. So that's one. Jane Kennedy up there with Brent Musburger and Jimmy the Greek. Come on, man. And as far as Danica Patrick, you got to be careful with the parlance and the references you made there, because you kept saying she grabbed the pole. You got to be careful about that. There's a joke there, but people need to understand that's racing terms, okay?
Pole position, racing term.
Yeah, you said she grabbed the pole. I'm like, hey.
No pun intended.
There you go. There we go.
There you go.
All right. I yield my time to somebody else.
Carlos, you earned the name of the analyst on this one. I hadn't even thought about Jane Kennedy. I remember her as an actress, and I remember when she married that weasel, Isaac Kennedy.
Leon Kennedy.
And Leon. And he was an actor also. I remember he played a movie, a boxer. But I remember when Jane Kennedy transitioned from the big screen into the sports world. And I recall all of the resistance, because the guys didn't want her in the locker room. And there was a lot of stuff about that. And she finally made a statement that none of them had anything that she hadn't seen before. And I think it put it to rest. And you talk about Dana Patrick. They did everything in the world to keep her out of racing, because that was definitely a man-dominated sport. I don't know if you remember, but during the same time that Dana Patrick was doing the NASCAR, there was a woman by
Danica. Yeah, make a mistake.
Danica. There was a woman by the name of Julia Crone, I remember. And she was she wasn't the first, but she was one of the first women. She was one of the first women to win a Triple Crown race. And it was in 93. She won the Belmont Stakes. So I take my hat off to you. And Shirley Chisholm, I mean, just hands down. I remember when she went into Congress. And I recall as a young person when she was running for president of the United States. And a lot of people thought that she had lost her mind. But she was a strong congressperson and she was a strong presidential candidate. And when you said that, it kind of brought back memories of the stuff that's been floating around for the past month or more, that Michelle Obama was planning to take over for Biden and he was going to step aside. But she dispelled that rumor the other day very emphatically that she would not be running.
CJ?
All right.
You got anything, young man?
I don't have too much to add. Like I said, I'm familiar with Danica Patrick, but I'm not a big NASCAR guy, so I don't watch too much of it. And other two were before I was born. So like I'm familiar with the names and a little bit, but I don't know the history as in depth as you all do.
Okay. All right.
Fair enough. But hopefully that brought up some memories or stirred some memories for a lot of people who watched the show on those three. Think about Women's History Month. Those were three major participants in the equal rights movement for women, and they were very good at their jobs.
Oh man, the analyst dug deep. He earned his stripes on that one. He
did, because I'm telling you, Shirley Chisholm was a real groundbreaker, and she opened the door for a lot of African American women who are today reaping the benefits of being in Congress. I mean, there's another lady that you didn't mention. She was another groundbreaker, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who is in Congress today for the nation's capital. She's been in Congress for I don't know how many years, 20-some years.
At least 20-some years.
Yeah. Just has no voting in major issues, but she's been in Congress for District of Columbia for over 20-some years.
All right, Mr.
Fantastic.
Researcher.
It's a long month, so I'll be back with more information on some great ladies. All right, guys, do your thing.
All right, Mr. Researcher, what you got?
I got something that I've been seeing popping up over the last week or so with this stuff with Donald Trump and his attempt to gain Black voters. And I have a couple of clips that I wanted Gary to show. I think this was one of them, but one of the things that was pointed out, there's a second clip of him with some Black women. And I think they made a mistake in the hand on, I think it's the left side. It has 6 fingers in it. And so it's just becoming a real AI generated election that you're going to be seeing coming up. And think about it, this is just March. So this is going to get even more intense as the months go forward. Another thing that troubled me a little was Stephen A. Smith, who is someone that I watch on First Take, but not someone that I truly agree with a lot of stuff. And I think that a lot of times people should stay in their lane. I respect him as a journalist and as a person who basically transitioned from the newspaper to the sports analyst, even though he never played, I think, anything but basketball. And they make a joke out of it that he only played for one game at Winston-Salem on the Big House Games. Yeah. But he did a thing recently where he really condemned Biden. Gary, I don't know if you have that clip, but he did a thing on Biden, who was having a meal with a Black family. And here's the clip.
So with the president and fried chicken ain't the greatest look. That's number one. Number two, President Biden, respectfully, I got to ask you this question. What the hell are you doing eating fried chicken? You're 81. What 81 you know is munching on fried chicken? Y'all knew Fox News and other networks jumped on that, right? And they talked about how He's trying to appeal with the black vote to go get fried chicken. They made the connection, right? Y'all would have a problem with Fox News and Jesse Waters bringing something like that up. I have a problem with the president. There's black kids all over the place. There's a whole bunch of black kids in Raleigh, North Carolina. That is the kind of scene, that is the kind of imagery you and your team decided to provide? Really? Really? Sitting down eating fried chicken. Come on, man.
What you got?
I got something that I've been seeing popping up over the last week or so with this stuff with Donald Trump and his attempt to gain black voters. And I have a couple of clips that I wanted Gary to show. I think this was one of them. But one of the things that was pointed out, there's a second clip of him with some black women. And I think they made a mistake in the hand on, I think it's the left side. It has 6 fingers in it. And so it's just becoming a real AI generated election that you're going to be seeing coming up. And and think about it, this is just March. So this is going to get even more intense as the months go forward.
I don't have much to say on it. That Stephen A. should stick to more quality journalism. To make a big deal out of that, there are so many other things that are a big deal right now, besides the president sitting down with a family of color to have fried chicken. Again, I just think it's a poor taste of a story. Maybe the story should be, how is Donald Trump with 91 charges? It appears he's going to beat them all and be president again. Maybe that should be the story. Maybe the story should be about since he's an actual sports reporter, maybe it should be about the young lady who just broke the NCAA scoring record. There are other topics that would keep him in his lane. Again, hey, it's a free country. You can say what you want. He's a journalist. I actually like Stephen A. because he definitely stirs the pot. But on this particular issue, I don't think it was worth stirring. That's my take.
Well, I don't always agree with Stephen A. myself as well, but I don't think he's wrong on this one, honestly. Like, I mean, Biden, that's just a bad political move, bad political pandering, photo op. But the reason they're not talking about Trump is just because Trump is not the current president right now. And Trump being racist and bad with black people is not news, not a surprise. That's why he has to have AI generated black people in his pictures, because he doesn't have black support because he's Donald Trump and most of his base is racist and neo-Nazi or white supremacist. So there's just not going to be organic support for Trump for black people, no matter how many times, how much they try or how much AI generated. I went down my Twitter feed and saw a white man with a "Niggas for Trump" shirt on. Like, that is their black outreach. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, they don't have black people to represent them. So when people criticize Biden, it's because Biden is supposed to be the not racist one. So when he's sitting up eating fried chicken with a random family, but not offering any policies that help black people, but just a photo op eating black food with a black family, people are going to criticize it. And rightfully so. It's just pandering at its most. And Trump does it too, but Trump's just not the president. So every time people criticize Biden, I don't think it's a good line, a good response to be like, well, what about Trump? That doesn't absolve Biden of making bad political decisions.
The family may have wanted fried chicken.
Well, if you look at the video in its entirety, the kids talked about, he asked them about school. They talked about basketball while they were eating the chicken. And Biden even talked to one of them and said, what position you play? And the kid was telling him that he was a guard on the basketball team. And he was asking him about different moves and different setups and that type of thing. So it wasn't that he was sitting there talking. It wasn't on a photo script. You could tell it was not scripted. And so, I'm like Carlos. I think on certain things like that, Stephen A. should stay in his lane. And also, when you get Black people who are targeting Biden, yes, he is the president, and he is the one with the bullseye on his back. when you get black people that are targeting him, for some black people, that just more drives them towards Donald Trump. And so that's my time.
Well, I tell you, do you think these are there enough? I don't even know. I'm so done with these AI generated and these gullible black folks. How many people do you think these AI generated photos with Trump are going to do anything?
No.
Personally, I do. I mean, I mean, I look at some of this stuff that's going on, Gary, in the world today, and you got to wonder how the people buy some of the stuff that's being sold. And it worries me that when Trump constantly pushes the thing of, him with these ladies and him with these young kids, that you have a certain group or number or a percentage of people who are going to believe that. I remember Richard Nixon said something one time on the Watergate tapes, and he was in his office with Haldeman and Dean, and they were his chief of staff and his advisors. And they told him, they said, Mr. President, you can't tell the American people that. And he said, the American people will believe anything that comes out of the White House. And
Wow.
so a lot of times you can tell people, it's that old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it, Carlos. You're old enough, and Gary is too. If you throw enough stuff up against the wall, something's going to stick.
It'll stick. It'll stick.
Hey, I want to say one more thing about that. In one of my favorite movies, Denzel said, "This is chess, not checkers." And I think people love to play checkers, right? They like to just believe what they see on first glance. They want to run with whatever's happening. But how many people actually sit and think about some of these key decisions before they make it? People make a lot of emotional decisions. A lot of times they don't think it through. So if you're not paying attention to politics, which some people may vote and they may not ever watch the news. They may never listen to the news in their car. They may only see an occasional Twitter feed or something with Trump with black people. Oh, I guess he's okay. I'll vote for him. I mean, they literally are playing checkers and they're not playing chess. So I think somebody's going to buy it. Unfortunately, more people buy it than they should. And no one should buy it.
Yeah. I just know when I used to work in the White House and the president would travel, they go out and they send advanced teams and they check with people. What do you want? How's this? If you don't have people who are strong enough to advise, or you don't have the right kind of people in the room, or you can have people in the room who are afraid to talk and bring it up, like, hey, you know what? That's not a good look, or that's not a good idea. I don't know how it is now, but like I said, years ago, that's the way it used to be. But CJ, you on the clock, my brother. What you got?
Sure. Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about both parties. We can talk about some of the elections. I'll get back to the Biden thing. I'll close with the Democrats. We'll start with the Republicans as usual. Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. Nikki Haley has dropped out. Finally, she did not endorse Trump, but she's, wants to keep her followers in case he goes to jail or something. So I think she's just going to kind of hang around, but she is withdrawn from the race because she was getting bludgeoned from state to state by the Trump supporters. There are some more rational Republicans that do lean towards Haley, but it is not enough of them. And the party has spoken. Trump is going to be the nominee again. Unfortunately, even Mitch McConnell has come back to him, even after he said, oh, he was a disgrace and January 6th was all this. But then he bent the knee. He's going to support Trump on his way out to, go to the upper room, wherever Mitch McConnell's headed with all his issues. But yeah, that's where the Republicans are headed. And I saw the Black Trump AI generated pictures earlier this week and all the Black voter outreach, but it's not working. Like, if you look at the numbers, like, there's just not a large number of Black people flocking to the Republican Party for obvious reasons. They offer nothing, just like the Democrats offer nothing, but the Republicans offer nothing plus a little hint of racism, which is not really appealing to the Black voter base. There's going to be a handful of people, like maybe some rappers and rich Black people for tax purposes that vote for Trump, and maybe like just some ignorant people that vote for Trump, but that's not a huge number. Trump is not a hugely popular candidate overall. Really, he's actually a weak candidate for a general election. Nikki Haley probably would have been a better choice to face Biden, but Republicans are stuck with Trump, which would be a good thing for the Democrats, but unfortunately, they're still running Joe Biden, who is losing to Trump in all the polls, who is still struggling, who is still having moments that he is just freezing in public and can't answer questions, or he's still aggressively backing a genocide against the will of his voters. So now he has to go against these uncommitted voter bases in all these primaries. So I know in Michigan, about 20% of the voter base went uncommitted. That means they went to the polls specifically to not vote for Biden in a primary, which is a problem in swing states where people are trying to show you, hey, we need you to reverse course on this policy position because we're your base. And their Democrats have responded with, hey, we're going to court those Nikki Haley supporters now, and we're just going to ignore our base who wants a ceasefire, and we're going to pivot right and try to court the Republicans that are disaffected and that don't want Trump. Basically, they're going with the Hillary Clinton strategy. That's exactly what Hillary did. Say, we're going to screw the progressives. We don't care about the young people, the progressives, they can kiss our ass, but we're going to go for those Republicans who don't want Trump, the rational Republicans. That didn't work for Hillary. And Biden's going full steam on the same strategy, which is not helpful and not promising, as we saw how that worked out. And again, there needs to be a change of course. Every Democrat that goes out to speak is getting ceasefire protesters. There's still 80% of their base wants a ceasefire. Democrats still do not want to be responsive to their main voter base, which is very dangerous going into an election against Donald Trump, who somebody they say is an existential threat to democracy. So again, my thing with Joe Biden is if to beat Trump, you need to differentiate yourself from Trump. So like this week, when Joe Biden says, hey, Donald Trump, why don't we work together on your border deal? I want to do your border deal. Let's work together and do that, which Joe Biden said this week. He wants to work with Trump. So how is he a threat to democracy, but you're normalizing him by saying we should work together on this piece of legislation that is yours? So if you're Joe Biden, you should be, you can't have it both ways and say, this guy's an existential threat to democracy. We need to stop him at all costs, but also we need to be civil to the Republicans. We need to work with Trump on this, and he might be right on the border. Like, you can't have it both ways. They're really having a really, really bad time of strategy and campaigning. Even going back to the thing with the fried chicken and the black people, that was a story a few weeks ago, but even though it's not a wildly offensive or anything, a lot of people are asking just like, who are those people? Who are the people? Like, why is he in this house with these random black people eating chicken instead of maybe working on some legislation that might help black people or announcing some policies or anything with his actual vast powers, instead of just kind of hanging out with a black family eating fried chicken? I saw the whole video too. He's asking the kids like, that's cool, but what does that have to do with you being president and running for another term and your agenda for the next, other than, hey, I'm a little less racist than the other guy? Again, it's not a great strategy to not distinguish yourself enough from the other guy. And right now, that's the reason we're having such a tight race. The polls are extremely tight and getting tighter because Biden is losing more and more support over his staunch support of genocide, which again, not what his base wants, regardless of how morally bankrupt it is. It is against what his voter base wants, which is hurting him for the election, which is going to lead to Donald Trump, who is likely to continue genocide. So there's a frustration with the Democratic voter base that the Democrats don't give a damn what their voters want. And that's a huge problem for them going forward. Also, there are Democrats like Kristen Sinema, who retired this week, people like John Fetterman and Joe Manchin, who run as Democrats, but as soon as they get in office, they flip and just become Republicans, and they block every Democratic legislation that would be good. Kristen Sinema did that. Joe Manchin did that. And then they retire and they get cushy jobs in the private sector. And then the cycle repeats itself. So it's really hard to get change when the Democrats are not honest actors working in good faith. And we already know the Republicans are not honest actors working in good faith. So who is operating on behalf of the American people at this point? Because the reason people criticize Democrats is because they're supposed to be the party of the people, but they're not anymore. And now we're looking at two of the same sides of the coin. One's a little bit more fascist and aggressive, but just like the Gaza situation, Biden will do a genocide where he pretends to care, but won't use any of his levers of power to check Israel or do anything but support them. And then Trump will do the same thing. So you'll get lip service from Democrats, and then you'll get symbolic gestures like eating fried chicken or kneeling with kente cloth, but they won't actually do anything legislatively to help you. And then the Republicans, they will do something for their base, which is why Trump is in a little stronger position, because he's actually listening to his base. They just happen to be insane. And that is the problem. They're talking about building walls and deporting everybody and talking about banning abortions everywhere and taking it like that is their agenda. But Trump's going to do that for them. And that's going to get people excited to go to the polls for Trump. There is no excitement for Biden. And that is a problem. Like, everyone voted for Biden the first time around as a protest vote against Trump. But that's not going to work 2 times in a row, unfortunately. Like, the polls are indicating that. The people are indicating that. Every sign is indicating that. So again, it's up to Democrats to listen to their voter base to make these adjustments, or it's going to be them to blame for Donald Trump. You can't blame AI generated pictures for Trump. If that's enough to swing the election for Donald Trump, then you haven't done enough as president in 4 years to make people feel like you can help them or you're going to help them. You're not even laying out an agenda for your next term to help people. You're just saying, reelect me because Orange Man bad. And I don't know if that's going to be a strong enough case to keep Orange Man out the White House. So if anybody wants to chime in on that.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll say this quickly. I do think that politicians of a certain age market themselves in elections with a lot of photo ops. Photo ops they believe will be effective. And I know younger voters, when I say younger voters, most younger voters under the age of 40 don't really relate to that. I think most voters over the age of 40 may relate to, oh, that's a good scene, or, oh, he's having dinner with, but no, the younger voters don't relate to any photo ops. They call it out left and right. And I think that that's probably one of the bigger issues that we do have with our current candidates for president of the United States. They're doing what was effective, and Biden's definitely campaigning like it's 1988. As opposed to, he probably would have had a better, following or response if he had actually got out and did a town hall with some young people and it spoke to him straight up. If CJ was in the audience or some other people, from that are under the age of 40 were in the audience and he spoke to him just straight up as opposed to having a photo op with the fried chicken. I still believe there are stronger stories and reporters should stay in their lane, but I do think he does need to improve his photo ops and his campaigning style to relate to younger voters.
And I think one of the reasons he's not going to do a town hall is because I don't think his people think he's capable of doing a town hall or debates. That's why they won't have him do one. Like there have been town halls in the past. Trump has done town halls. All of these, some other candidates have done town halls. Joe Biden has done nothing. He didn't even do the Super Bowl interview that every president does because they don't want him speaking in front of people without extreme care, without extreme cue cards where they can control. It's in case he has one of those blank out senior moments that he tends to have a lot.
The only thing I'll say is that I agree with CJ. I was really kind of taken back, I guess I could say, for lack of a better word, when Biden put out the plea to Donald Trump to come to the table and work with him. I remember something that Bill Maher, I don't know if you all know who he is, but he has a show on HBO, and he has said over the years, over and over again, that the Democrats are weak, and he stands behind that. And when I heard something like Biden appealing to Trump to, let's come to the table and sit down, it kind of reflects the same sentiment that I heard when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. That's basically seems to be the thing with Democrats. They always want to work with Republicans, but there's an old saying, you can't negotiate and you can't work with anyone who does not want to negotiate and work with you. And so my feeling on that is, if you don't want to work with me, the hell with you, and I'll do my thing. I like to say that I wish there was some way possible, and it will never happen, but I wish there could be a national, push to remove every senator and every congressman and replace them all with people who want to do their job. These people on Capitol Hill today do not want to get anything done. The only thing they want to create is strictly chaos. And they think chaos looks good for the American people, and they think it looks good for the people that are behind them. So it will never happen, but I wish there was some kind of way that there could be a national push to remove every senator, every congressman, Democrat, Republican, no matter what, and replace them with people who want to do the job of the American people. And that's my take on it.
All right. Everybody got 3 minutes to sound off. Go ahead, CJ. You on the clock.
Sure. Well, I'm going to keep it going and just go right back to Gaza real quick, because there's a few things that really bother me that I could not let go. And it's another gripe that I really have with Joe Biden. A lot of reporters really grilled him for at the time when he cast doubt upon the Gaza numbers of death of the children and the women and all the innocent people who died, when he was saying, oh, those are the Hamas numbers, which, if you have done any research in the international community, the Gaza Ministry of Health numbers have been the most accurate numbers, even on with the UN and anything like that. And it's been like that. So Joe Biden knew he was lying at the time, casting doubt upon the death numbers. But then last week, his Defense Department confirmed that Israel has killed over 25,000 women and children in Gaza since October 7th. 25,000 just women and children. That's not counting the men and innocent men. So that proves that the IDF's numbers have been BS. They've been lying about how many enemy combatants and Hamas they've been killing. And they've just literally just been slaughtering mostly women and children and unarmed combatants. And that was confirmed by the Department of Defense this week, which confirms that Joe Biden was full of, was lying to the American people, casting doubt upon those numbers, because he knows that he has done at least 10 arms sales to Israel since October 7th. And now we had the flower massacres last week, where Israel opened fire on UN aid trucks as people are trying to get aid. The trucks, starving people trying to get food. Israel opened fire on them multiple times this week. They're calling it the flower massacres now. And so then the U.S., going back to the weakness of Biden and the Democrats, talking about, even though they're our ally and they're supposed to let in aid, we're going to airdrop food into Gaza now. Why are you airdropping food into Gaza if that's your ally and they're supposed to be letting aid through? It's because they're not letting aid through. Israel's just still giving us the middle finger. Biden is saying, oh, we're politely telling them to do this and that behind the scenes. Then when every reporter grills them talking about, oh, so you're going to, use your leverage and maybe cut off funding for them? Oh, no, absolutely not. We're going to give them everything they want. But we told them nicely behind the scenes that they should stop slaughtering thousands of women and children. No one's buying it anymore. And again, that's another thing that's really hurting Biden in this election, because he marketed himself as the moral good guy. He's the nice old man. Trump's the evil racist one. You can't brand yourself as a nice old man when you are greenlighting the massacre of over 25,000 women and children. That's not an argument you can make that you're the moral nice guy and that, this is a guy who really cares. Like, that's not an argument you can make when you're doing genocide and you're greenlighting genocide and you're blocking ceasefire resolutions in the UN and you are running cover for the most barbaric, brutal regime we have seen since Hitler. So that's our tax money doing that. And that's another issue for both of our political parties, because it's not just Joe Biden. Donald Trump, I think, would gleefully support this as well. So until we get some sort of justice in that, there's not going to be any peace for these politicians. Adam Schiff won his election. He couldn't even finish his speech because protesters shouted him down. Every person or politician that goes in public is going to have to answer for this. And again, the American people are the base. And if you don't listen to your base, there's going to be some political consequences.
Carlos.
Wow. I mean, we've heard a lot tonight. And I think the key is, my message to people would be just to think before they react. I think they make too many emotional decisions. It could be professionally, on camera, off camera. It can be through email. People make too many emotional decisions. And then most of the time when they make the emotional decisions, it ends up being a bad decision. So I think people really just need to think, exercise your right to vote. Many people fought for that right to vote. Exercise that right. And, really just think about everything that's going on. I mean, at this point, we only have two candidates left for president of the United States, technically. Okay, there are other people who may be on the ballot, but we only have two candidates really viable, if you consider them viable. We have to make a decision, and not voting is probably going to help one of them win. So I think we just have to think before we react, and we have to vote. And we'll see what happens. I'm still going back to what I said initially, maybe, a while back, and that just don't think anything's going to happen to Trump. 91 charges. He seems like he can avoid anything. At the way things are going, he's on pace to become president of the United States again. I mean, I don't know. I just think that, after the insurrection, gosh, it's a tough deal, man. I mean, like, if people of color storm a convenience store, they're going to jail. But I don't know. He somehow was the leader of the worst insurrection in the history of the country. He's got 91 charges for other crimes and misdemeanors, and he's looks like he's going to become president again. So I'm not a politician, but I will analyze this situation as we go forward to see what happens, because it just seems really incredible, but it looks like it's happening. And then also, from change gears before my minute is up. It's March. Hey, man, if we need a little break from politics and everything that's going on in the world, let's catch some good March Madness with the basketball tournaments, the conference championships. Then we're going to have the NCAA tournament. Let's enjoy that when we get a chance, because I think we all do need a break from some of the crazy stuff that's happening in the world today. All right, that's my take. And continue to celebrate Women's History Month. All right.
All right. Mr.
Carlos,
Spivey, unpack us. I'm
gonna piggyback off of what you said about if a group of blacks stormed a building or something, it would be a whole different thing. And the troubling part is this man incited a riot. I mean, he attacked democracy. And the ironic thing is he's still standing behind it. And if he goes into the White House with any power that he has, he's going to pardon all of those people that the judge convicted. But I'm going to say this. I don't put, as I've said before on this show, I don't put a lot of credence in polls. I think a poll is a moment in time. Polls are driven by conversation, and they're not driven by policy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put hopefully my faith in the American people, and that when it comes down to crunch time, I mean, we're talking about March now. We're talking, 6 months before the election, that when it comes down to crunch time, that the American people are going to look around and say that we really want somebody in the White House who is a total embarrassment to the United States. And is this the person that we want representing us all over the world? And I think, and hopefully, that they will come to the realization that Donald Trump is not the person that they want. And I'll close by talking about what I talked about last week. I'm concerned with the charges, the 91 charges. There is a strong possibility that he will not go to trial on any of them. Judge Cannon down in Florida, who is listening to the trial regarding the top secret material, which he kept at Mar-a-Lago, and even tried to get one of the people to flood the room where the items were being kept. The Supreme Court now has basically taken a lackadaisical attitude on this immunity case that's before them. And that is very, very important, because if they do grant him immunity, the charges with Jack Smith will probably go away. And it will probably, if by chance he gets into the White House, it will give him immunity against any crimes that he may incite in the future. And last but not least, the trial of Fonnie Willis as to her suitability to continue with the Georgia case, which is one of the most important cases, the RICO charges with the 19 people. The judge, they ended everything on Friday. And to give you an example, the judge said he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks. And that could continue weeks after. So I think, Carlos, you're right when you talk about he will not go to trial. But as I say, hopefully in the end, I think the American people, when it comes closer to November, will do the right thing. Unfortunately, we do have 2 elderly people running for office. Joe Biden is old and he's having some memory issues. And I don't hear a lot about Donald Trump and his diaper wearing and his odor, where people don't want to sit next to him. I think the recent thing I read was there was a dinner or something, and his son Barron didn't want to sit next to him because he said his dad is stink. So I don't think Donald Trump is in the best of health. So we'll just see what's going to happen in November.
Okay, folks. If your head hasn't exploded, then it's probably sitting in your lap. We are the Thought Brothers, and until next time, we are out of here. Come on, March Madness, give us a break.
That's right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.